This collector on the corner. We're going to revisit yesterday's video a little bit about the honeydew job on the cave.
Yes'm.
And I'm going to tell a story about a copperhead snake. I'm going to tell another story about a little dog we had in the bumblebees. Debbie can tell it. She knows. She can narrate it pretty good. And what I did.
What did you do,
I
darling?
took that conglomerate out of that hole over there about a foot deep.
Mm-hmm.
And I used this little auger right here, and I augered down.
Mm-hmm.
Like this. Now, one step back, honey. And I put water in that hole so this dirt will stick.
Yuck.
And I thought I needed about 2 foot.
Whoa.
I'm already down 3 feet.
Dadgum. How were you?
I went as deep as that auger would go over here.
I know. That real tall pipe is now a tiny pipe.
This top pipe right here
Uh-huh.
is the same length as this one right here, 12 foot. And there's only 5 foot. See, I'm 5'6". There's only 5 foot sticking up. That's how deep that is. But what I did,
What did you do,
I drilled that
baby?
hole with that little auger,
Uh-huh.
5 foot deep.
Uh-huh.
Then I put this 3-inch pipe in there.
Isn't that overkill?
I put this 3-inch pipe over here. And this 3-inch pipe,
Mm-hmm.
it's 8 foot long. And I drove it down further with that sledgehammer. And inside the middle of that 3-inch pipe, there's a 6-foot piece of rebar.
Uh-huh.
And then I put this 2.5-inch pipe inside there and drove it down.
Isn't it kind of in the way?
I drove it down. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grind the edge of this 3-inch pipe tapered
Uh-huh.
where I can drive it down that crack right there. I'm gonna stick it up above it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want this gate 8 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 16-foot opening with that little gate.
Now what are you gonna do if an 8-foot tall man comes and shows up? You just gonna let him step over the gate?
Yep. This one right here, if you look at this rock right here, that's granite. That ain't native to here. It came down with a glacier.
Really?
Yep, that's a glacier rock. I just set off to the side of it.
Okay.
You take this auger and sometimes you gotta turn it backwards just a little bit.
Yep.
But it goes pretty quick. I like soaking the wall and then with water, then come back and take a little dirt out. See, I didn't get there much.
No, you didn't get hardly any.
I didn't get a full.
Okay, I think I got splattered a little bit on that one.
Okay.
Yes'm.
Years and years ago, when our kids was little,
Uh-huh.
me and Debbie moved into this old house on the side of a hill. It's one of them Snuffy Smith looking houses like you see on a comic strip. Built up on rocks. And the south and east side of it was this high. Above my waist.
Mm-hmm.
But as you crawled back further underneath it, it kept getting shallower and shallower and shallower. Side the hill, they just stacked rocks up to the level, and that's where they built out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wanting to run electric wire, and you couldn't put nothing in the walls because the way it was, old oak boards, and they had cross pieces in there. You just couldn't route wires through the wall. So I drilled a hole in the floor, and I told her, watch, I'm gonna crawl in the house and run a piece of Romex through that hole in the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So she's standing up there waiting for me to poke this wire through there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a piece of Romex I'm a drag in one hand, and didn't have them lights you put on your head back in them days. And I had a flashlight in the other, and I'm crawling up there to where I was gonna do that hole. And I come to face with a pretty good sized copperhead. I mean, I'm 6 inches, my face 6 inches from him. So right away I turned my head to where I wasn't breathing on him, and he's got that tongue coming up. testing the air there. And I'm laying there. And Debbie gets tired of waiting, and she starts stomping on the floor and hollering at me, "When you gonna poke that wire up through here? Where you at? What's going on?" Blah, blah, blah. And direct that old snake, he just kind of turned and went on up to where out of sight. And I backed up real slow and crawled out of there. So then I fixed the high side of that house. I fixed some hog panels around there. And I went down there and I got 2 little choke pigs. I put them little old 60-pound pigs in there. Because them pigs we had at that time was bloodthirsty. Anything got in that pig pen, it didn't matter what it was. If it was a cat or a dog or a snake or a rabbit or a chicken, they would eat it. That was the bloodthirstiest bunch of pigs I ever seen in my life. But something about them made bloodthirsty. Maybe they was lacking something in their diet.
Yeah,
but
blood.
I put them pigs under there because I knew they'd root around there and either run that snake off or catch him and eat him. And a poison snake bites a pig, it won't kill him. It usually just swell up a little bit, and 3 or 4 weeks later, you don't even know they've been bit by a snake. Then we had this little dog. We called him Stripe. He had a stripe black on his head and had a stripe right down the middle of the top of his head. White, spotted, nice little dog. Best little dog, one of the best dogs we ever had.
Yeah, he was a cute little dog.
And one day I come out there and Debbie was beating him with a broom.
Yes, I was.
And I'm kind of mad because she's beating him with a broom, and I'll let her tell the rest of it.
Well, anyway, Randall had a 56 Crown Victoria Ford car, and I guess some bumblebees had got up in it, and the dog had crawled underneath there to lay down and nap like dogs do. Well, when he got under there just right, he come running out and had bumblebees all over his head. So me being me, I just grabbed the broom and started beating the far out of the bumblebees.
Trying to sweep them off.
Unfortunately, he was getting beat too. So anyway, he survived and the bumblebees survived, and I run.
Then I got rid of them out of that car. And then I noticed there's some cypress boards on the side of that old house, and there's a little knot hole in that cypress board.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed they was going in out of that hole, and I told them, Debbie and the boys, I said, "I'll show you how you take care of bumblebees."
Yeah, he did. He told us.
So I went and got an old shingle,
old
cedar shingle, and I whittled and made myself a paddle with it, pretty good sized paddle. And I drilled a couple of holes in the far end. And tell them what happened.
He was kind of tapping on the thing, and when they'd come out, he'd smack them down. And, they were coming out like every once in a while, and he just sat there and just kept swatting them and killing them. And then finally, he's like, "This ain't fast enough." So he tappa, 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 tappa on that like a woodpecker, and all of a sudden, he was running up the hill, and me and the kids was like, "Ah!" So we closed the door and just watched him run. He was beating his back, and when he come back, he'd been bit like 3 or 4 times. And I told the kids, I said, "Now see, this is what not to do when you're tackling bumblebees."
I was wearing a pair of cut-off jeans. That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't have no shoes or shirt or hat or nothing on. And them suckers was all over the back of my neck and in my hair. I mean, 11 dozen of them come out all at once. I couldn't swat fast enough.
No, it's your fault. You had to do a drum beat on their side of their house.
So then I put a garden hose in that hole. Where if they had to come out, they had to come out through that garden hose about 3 foot. And then I got a sprayer, a paint sprayer, and I put some Raid and stuff in a paint sprayer and stuck it on the end of that hose where it'd funnel on up in there into the wall of the house. And
Jeepers.
I poisoned them out. I'd poison them out in that car too, with with Raid or something like that.
Bumblebees are mean.
Poured down in that. They was in the frame. I poured it down in the frame where they was at.
The dog survived.
Yeah, and I survived.
I
And
know.
So that's a bumblebee story, and this is an overkill on gatepost story.
He's.
And what I'm gonna do?
I wish you'd get it done before
I'm
the
gonna
week's
put
out.
concrete around where I had to dig that out by hand. And different guys have talked about different stuff, you know, having big arm bars and spud bars and stuff. I got them. Here's one I got right here.
Oh boy.
That'll jab stuff loose.
Yeah.
It's bent a little.
Don't
And
matter.
I've got more of them. And we've got a drill rig that was World War II drill rig. It's on a trailer. And it's for putting up telephone poles. It'll drill a hole 18 feet deep unless you hit bedrock. It's powerful. Runs off tractor PTO now. And then I've got another one that's a 3.1, you know, that you commonly see over there. I got one of them laying over on the ground right over there. But I didn't want to dig a great big hole here. A great big hole.
Why don't you want to dig
a great big hole tends to get loose.
Oh.
I would rather have that little 3-inch hole and that pipe fitting tight in the undisturbed subsoil.
Okay.
And just put something around the top. I just don't like a sagging gate. You know, most
How
things,
can you say that when that gate there was the saggiest gate? Well, that's
didn't last.
But you know what? That's all in the past.
Yeah.
You should have put spikes on it so when
Yeah,
people run into it, they learn their
what that guy
lesson.
would do,
Yes, I know what that guy
he would
do.
come up here
And he would go so fast.
and he wanted to do everything 900 mile an hour. He drove real fast.
Yes, I know.
And he would come up here in that old truck and he'd turn around, he'd pull up there, and he'd back up real fast. And he backed through my gate more than once. You know.
He ran over one of our sheeps.
Yeah, he backed over a sheep one time, killed it. You know, but he was always doing that. He'd show how good a driver he was because he'd get everything lickety-split 900 miles.
Yeah, we rode.
Didn't matter where
We rode with him one time to Mountain Home, and I thought I was going to have the baby on the way because
yeah, that's when you was pregnant Randy.
scared the bejabbers out of me.
But everything he had, his wife was the same way. And they lived on up the road up here. And there's a road, turns off the highway, not very sharp, but it just angles off the highway. And they would come and turn off the highway and turn so fast that when they turned in that road, on that asphalt apron, the car would be on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
The driver's side 2 wheels would be clearing the ground. That's how fast they left the highway.
Yeah, it was pretty,
You know?
pretty amazing.
They had a lot of wrecks and their insurance was high, but you know, to hear them tell it, they was the best drivers in the world, you know.
Well, they were.
With their driving, they kind of suffered from that Dunning-Kruger a little bit, you know.
No, I don't.
Tell them about that time we seen his truck run over him.
Oh, me and Randall was going to town and we seen his truck in the ditch and he was underneath and he never had no floorboards or doors on his truck. And I'm like, oh my God, Randall, he's fell out and he's done runned over himself. So Randall ran over there and we pulled over and Randall ran over there and said, Jim, what's going on? And you okay? And, you know, I'm just working on my truck.
His clutch linkage had come off. We had this old 3/4 ton truck, orange, belonged to the railroad at one time. It had granny 4-speed, and he tore the door off getting in and out because it's rusty, and the floorboards was rusted away, and he'd be in there with his seatbelt on, driving around, no door and no floorboards, you know.
And he rested his feet on the pedals
He messed his feet on the pedals
to keep him from dangling.
His clutch linkage had popped off, so he drove it over there into a ditch.
So he could get
and
under.
Then he crawled underneath it, and he was under there putting his clutch linkage
Because he was a big
it looked
boy.
like he just fell out through that hole and it run over.
I thought he was dead.
Yep.
I thought he done
But he was
did
driving
it.
that truck and driving to work every day, and one day a state police seen him and chased him down, and he never ever drove it again.
No, he didn't.
He had to have it hauled back to his house.
Yeah. And I agree, because it was not very safe.
But it takes all kinds to make a world. He's a good friend of ours.
I know. I miss him.
You know, I don't guess I really got all that mad when he destroyed the gate. It just, you know, I knew he did stuff like that. You know, it wasn't nothing out of the ordinary. Anyway. So I guess that'll be it for this video for right now.
Okay, Dennis the Menace.
What?
Dennis the Menace.
Oh, Dennis the Menace. But anyway, I've got these right here, a bunch of these that I can put on these pipes.
Okay, well, I need to let you go so you can get this done.
It works on them hinges. You put one down, one up.
Okay.
If you turn that over, people will just lift the gate off.
Are you going to put another post in the middle?
No, it's going to be just open. Them two gates is going to touch each other and latch together.
You're still going to use that? Sorry, sucker.
No, these two. The little gate will be hung on this post.
Okay.
The big gate on that post. And right here, they'll just touch each other.
Okay.
And you latch them together.
Good.
That's all there's going to be.
Good. And then I'll be happy. Maybe.
I've got a piece that fits in here. It'll slide.
Oh, jeepers creepers.
It'll slide into the one on that other one.
Oh, wow.
And that's what'll hold them closed.
Wow.
Well, it works.
Well, yeah, it works.
And I'll probably wrap a chain around it and put a padlock to it when I'm gone.
When you're gone. Yep. Okay, I guess happy Sunday, y'all, and
goodbye and good luck to you.
And thanks for watching and liking. And be sure and like and subscribe and comment below. Bye, y'all, and you have a great day. Bye.